What's up, everybody? Sean here with another live Live to Roll video. This week, we're actually going to be talking about adaptive gaming and just all the different stuff. So, we got a few quads here to talk about some of the different mods and different things and just games they play. So, like you guys know, my name's Sean, C5, C6 quad from a snowboarding injury 17 years ago. Let's pass it on to Bobby. You're the other non gamer. Why don't you go next this time?
That's what I was thinking. What's up, everyone? Well, welcome back, and thanks, Sean, once again for thinking of some great ideas. And we have a good one today, which is adaptive gaming, like Sean was saying. My name is Bobby Rohan. I was hurt 30 plus years ago from a bicycle accident. I'm a C56 quad, and as Sean was saying, I'm not that type of. I don't game. Ever since they got to that number third button or the fourth and the fifth, I was like, this is too much here. So I like the A and B game. So if you have A and B on your controller, I'm good. But other than that, let's move it over to the experts, and we'll go to Tom. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Thanks again for joining. My name is Tom Conaway. I'm a C5, C6 quadriplegic. I've been paralyzed for 24 years from an automobile accident when I was 4 years old. And I've been gaming, gosh, like ever since my parents got me my first Game Boy Color when I was like 7 years old, I think. And yeah, I've been having fun ever since. Now I'm mostly, generally kind of more of a co-host on the show. I'm going to be more of a guest today, but our other main special guest, like to introduce Eric Ingram. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right. But Eric is a member of the disabled community, a huge rugby player, involved in lots of other aspects of the disabled community. He's a streamer and are going to be our like resident gamer expert today. So welcome to the show, Eric. You mind introducing yourself for us?
Thank you. Happy to be here. So yes, Eric Ingram, or in terms of this stream, Flea Gaming is my streaming title. So I'm a member of the disabled community. As I like to describe it, I'm a pureblood. So I was born with my disability. I have Freeman-Sheldon syndrome, which is a rare form of arthrogryposis. So I have like a lot of weird joint issues going on that impair mobility. So yeah, I've also been playing video games my entire life. I think, I started with the original Nintendo and then kind of worked up from there. So if we're talking Game Boy Colors, I did have the Pikachu limited edition Game Boy, and I was the coolest kid at my daycare. So,
Nice.
The story started a long time ago.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Like
That's great. Yeah, that's cool. You guys see that was one thing that I just, as a kid, I was kind of into gaming, but like I never really got like really into it as much. Like my brothers are really big time gamers. My one brother Mike is like always way hardcore into it and still is now. So like it's always been an interest to me. Like I always thought it was really cool. And I love watching some of the games, especially now. Games are incredible.
Yeah, it's so realistic, and it's just amazing, some of the graphics, and you're like, and one question I'll ask you guys later, with the goggles over the head, but it's just unreal what you can do nowadays with gaming. So I probably want to start out and ask you guys, what is adaptive gaming?
So it's interesting. Adaptive gaming for me has always just been gaming.
Right.
I mean, this is kind of a question that just pops in my head, which I kind of want to ask Eric about a little bit. Having grown up with your disability, the main reason I got a Game Boy was because my older brother, who's a year older than me, got one. And my parents were like, oh, we can't get one for Nick and not get one for Tom. But they weren't sure that I was going to be able to play it. Because I was injured, like, at the time. Like, I was just a few years out of my injury. And my fine motor control was, I got the quad pause. And it was not, they weren't sure. They were, at the very least, like, hesitant to get $100, Game Boy. And, without knowing I was going to be able to use it. So how did that go for you? Like, were your parents, like, a little hesitant to get you started? Or were they just like, here you go?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know from their perspective. Again, I was a kid. I don't know what went into their decision. I mean, it kept me busy, so they were probably like, whatever, can shut this kid up for a while. Like, let's just do that. But I had various successes with different systems. So like Game Boy was fine. Tactily, there's very few buttons and they're fairly close to your thumb, so it's easy to get to. I mean, as the consoles and things evolved, a lot of controllers don't work for me. Like N64 was a nightmare. Did I play hours and hours of GoldenEye and Star Fox? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it was difficult. My hands were often very sore, and there were a lot of times I couldn't keep up with the other kids playing the games just in the ability to reach different buttons and things. And so to go back to your previous question, you asked, what is adaptive gaming? It's whatever you have to do to make gaming work for you. And so be it a physical disability like I have, or, there's other obviously kinds of disability. I know we were talking before the show about, blindness and deafness and that. And, it's whatever you have to do to make it work. And then, that is the gaming adapted for you.
Most commonly, we
Right.
think of mobility or things like, how to overcome the issue of like fine motor control impairment. And that's like modifying a controller, physical modifications. There's devices that allow you to, like, for instance, nowadays, like Bobby was saying earlier, the controllers are very complex because the games are more complex. And there's lots of controls and buttons to do all at the same time. Now, our problem is, or at least my problem is I can do an analog stick and hit A or X up here, but I can't reach back and do a trigger all at the same time, to like shoot the gun. And I know, like I remember on the Nintendo 64 controller, the Z button on the very bottom and the R1 and the R2 on the back. I'm like, I can do the controllers on the buttons on the top, but I can't move my hand.
I'm still convinced they designed that controller for an octopus. Like, I don't know what human hand that was designed for, but it was because it was a 3-pronged controller. So I mean, even if you had perfect hands, there's no way you well, we don't have to get deep into like the N64 design, but it still bothers me to this day, like 15 years later. Like, I'm still bothered by this.
So
we have issues. Somebody has issues.
No, I know. It's a great point. But what I was getting to is, how do we overcome something like that? Like, if you have an issue accessing like the trigger or a button on the bottom of the controller versus the ones on the top, what's your option? There are, like we were talking about a little bit briefly, modifications you can maybe add to a controller, things like that. But with the evolution of technology and the inclusion of disabled gamers in that technology, there have been a lot of development in completely adaptive and assistive controllers that will allow you to plug in larger buttons that are more tactilely, that offer you ability to maybe are larger or softer, easier to push, or they might just be a trigger that you can set next to the controller and push, with the side of your hand versus having to reach around the back. And that's just a few examples of some of these types of like mobility modifications, I like to call them. Eric, do you have anything to add to that?
No, and as the games are evolving and as the social consciousness evolves as well, people with disabilities are becoming part of the conversation now. So, I mean, if you look at Microsoft and the Xbox adaptive controller that they came out with, I think, last year or the year before, which is just basically a giant rectangle, not reptile, rectangle, with different, large-scale buttons that are completely programmable
and
as a way
inputs to add your own button to it.
Exactly, and you can put more inputs into it. I mean, that was a big step forward, and me personally, like, that is a bit too much. That's a little bit more than I need. So, personally, what would work best for me is if I could completely program a controller itself. So my issue is, I'll bring up my controller here. I don't know if you want to get into my specific setup now or later, but
Go for it. Most definitely.
Let's jump
so
into
I use an Xbox style controller because that's what works best for my hands, right? And I have this particular model. It has extra triggers that go on the back here. That I don't know if you
kind
can
of
see it.
blurring out. Go
Yeah,
back.
there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it sort
You're
of
good
blurs
now.
out.
So there's extra paddles that you can mount to it, and you can say what responding thing it should tie into on the original controller. So from there, I've actually worked on remapping the bumpers, because that's what I have issues with, are the bumpers on this controller, to these back paddles. And since my hand kind of grips around it, I can use my ring fingers right here and press those in. But my issue extends from that is I can't unprogram the buttons I've reprogrammed. So what will happen is, and I don't know if you've ever played Call of Duty, or what I play a lot, when I'm streaming is Warzone, is the right bumper throws a grenade. And so all of the time throughout the game, I am just randomly throwing grenades, completely accidentally. And it sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not. And like all the time. So when I play with people, they're like, "Oh my God, who just threw that grenade?" I'm like, "Oh, sorry, it's me. It's my bad." So I think there are ways to utilize non-adaptive things to work for you, but if it could be taken a step further, at least in the standard controller design, I think that's what would get me to where I need to be. If I could individually program what button does what, or maybe what button doesn't function, I know that would be really beneficial to me.
So that's
And
not an
that
option
almost-
right now on
That
Xbox?
looks like. Oh, go ahead, Sean.
I was just gonna say, so that isn't an option right now to reprogram, like just through the system or whatever. You can't do that.
So
Yes.
with the controller I have, you cannot. I think there are some that you can. It gets expensive the more programmable a controller gets. And I don't know, someone out there might know better than myself, but it's easy to map a new button. It is very difficult to unmap an old button, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I don't want to get like too deep into the technical requirements of it, but that's why there's a slight disconnect in how it functions.
And here's the reality too, it starts to get a little technical because you're getting into, like changing electronics and changing a device that was designed a very specific way to function a very specific way. And it's really easy to, like you said, like make it not function correctly and ruin the experience. So here's like what Eric was talking about is like remapping something on the controller side, physically changing the controller. And then there's the software side of it, where within the game itself, it can allow you to remap and change what buttons control which. So if A is for shooting, you can sometimes set it to Y if that's easier for you. But not all games have always offered that. That's a very new invention. It's like the last 10 years, software like gaming companies have really become very conscious to disable gamers, mostly through like streaming and, like social media, I think, and stuff like that. But they've, on the software side, started to create much more mappable systems. Now, that makes it a lot easier. It's a lot easier to remap something in the software rather than having to like physically remap buttons on a controller, because you're messing with the hardware and you're changing, how the circuitry works sometimes, like where the wires go. And that can be a little bit more difficult and not within, the scope of some people's, like situations. Not everyone has, the capacity to remap or, change a controller. But if you buy a game and you can just go into the settings and change something that works for you, then that is, generally the more customizable, like easier option.
So, I mean, we were talking before, if you're playing on PC and you're able to use a keyboard, usually you can completely remap what keys on the keyboard does what. So you can hit the A button, and in a lot of modern games, you can say exactly what you want the A button to do on a keyboard, on a computer keyboard. And that complete control ability has not transferred into the actual video game controllers like the one I just showed you. So it's getting there.
Let's dive into that. And I know you guys said something about PC-based versus console. So tell us what the difference is for lame ducks like Sean and I out here. I know a PC is a computer, and a console I would imagine is an Xbox or PlayStation.
So yeah, a
Yeah.
console is a computer too. It's just a computer dedicated to gaming, and whatever software they allow you to use it on. So an Xbox it is a pretty high end computer, but it's the software and the hardware is built specifically for graphics intensive gaming. Now, hardcore gamers like Eric and myself generally, we like it. Games run better on a computer. You can just customize hardware, and it's the best like graphics technology out there. You can constantly update and modify your machine to like handle the new graphics and the new technology. So a lot of games are available for PC and console. So they're released for Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. Then there are some games developed by like Sony that are only available for PlayStation. You have to own a PlayStation to be able to play it. Now, that's difficult because if you are disabled and you're mostly a PC gamer and you can't play a console game because of the controller situation and the inability to modify your system to, be adaptive and assistive to you, then you're just SOL. You're just stuck. You can't play that game probably. You're probably just going to have to play another game. But there's so much content available now and so much, it's like not hard to pick up a different game and play.
The lines between console versus PC are blurring more and more every day. Very rarely, except for like a Nintendo Switch, which is a portable, basically a modern Game Boy. It's a great system, but if you're just looking at the core consoles of PC, Xbox, and PlayStation, the lines between them are getting blurred. So increasingly more games are completely cross-platform, meaning they'll play on all of them. Increasingly, controllers can be used on all of these systems. So
I can play the PlayStation controller on my computer because it connects via Bluetooth, and I can use the actual Sony PlayStation controller to play the game on my PC. So that's not even part of the system.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting to the point where it's mostly built on preference. And what amount of effort you want to put into it from your end and what kind of experience you're looking to get out of it. And I say that's the difference between PC and consoles, is just what kind of experience you want out of the thing. But especially between PlayStation and Xbox, those lines are getting increasingly blurrier, and they can kind of be looked of as almost one entity at this point.
And as far as like adaptive gaming, they're even better when it comes to blurring those lines, because I know you can use like an adaptive Xbox controller on a PC and on a PlayStation.
I actually saw when I was looking up adaptive pictures, somebody actually had set up the adaptive controller on the Xbox with the Nintendo Switch. It's got like an adapter. I actually have a picture up right now on it. But that's what I mean. Apparently you can do some pretty cool.
Xbox. And they built that on purpose. Like they did it, intentionally. And they offered up the API, which is the code that allows you to use that controller, to all other video game companies for free, incentivizing Nintendo, incentivizing Sony to make it accessible and usable, because it's an impressive piece of technology that is very customizable for any kind of gamer. So it really does come down to the company and to like the developers and the ones that are like building these systems, to like what they want to include, and because they can just simply like add the code to allow for an Xbox controller to control a PlayStation game, and that may work better for someone. The Xbox controller, for whatever reason, just like Eric said, is more comfortable, and the buttons are a little bit different, and it's suitable for his hands. Now that's up to Sony whether or not they want to allow that to happen. Of course they want you to buy the PlayStation controller. Of course they want you to get their stuff. But if they can work together to build an adaptive system that is just for Sony, more power to it, I think. But in any case.
So
also,
I know sometimes exercise equipment that wasn't designed in particular for the disabled, but then they start coming to us and they ask us, hey, what would make this easier for you? Does gaming companies, and obviously if you look at that one controller for Xbox, it looks like, or Microsoft did, it looks like they did do that intently. Are they doing that more and more, or do you guys get involved with that kind of stuff?
So, have you been involved in anything like that, Eric?
So I haven't yet. I mean, I know people who were involved in the research that Microsoft did for the adaptive controller, and I know that there has been um, increased involvement with or increased outreach from these companies to disabled and adaptive gamers. You know, I know there's also organizations working to make the video game culture and all the equipment around it more accessible in general. I know right off the top of my head, the Able Gamers Foundation is a group that does work like that, and I know there are several others. I'm just blanking on them. So I know that's increasing. Have I personally been involved with it? Not to this point yet.
I was involved with a study. It was a video game company here in Southern California, a big one. I signed an NDA, so technically I'm not allowed to talk about it, and I'm not going to say what game I tried out.
Ooh.
But it was like a new modern game on one of the modern consoles, like the next gen systems, and it was 2 weeks of them watching me play, and I was on camera, like they were recording me. They were like looking at my hands, and then they were having me like play the game as if I was just playing the game, but they were testing out new accessibility features that they had added. And in the room with me, there was another guy who was he was blind. He had visual impairment, and he was playing this next gen system, the same game that I was playing. But he was 90% visually impaired. Now, the way that they overcame this was they had different contrast settings. So he was able to see very, very high contrast. So they had the visual settings, they had very high contrast settings. And then the other thing about this game, which was like so incredible and impressive, is it was 3D audio. So he was playing as a blind person in the game in essence, because he was mostly using the impressive 3D audio to like understand his surroundings and his environment, and he was able to navigate and play through like 80% of the game and almost finish it in the time that like the study was being done. It was really impressive and really amazing. And then at the end of it, the actual developers who were in charge of the whole like adaptive, part of the game came and interviewed us, talked about our experience, talked about what worked for us, what didn't work for us, what our ideas, like what we thought like might work better, and it was very cool. It was like super, super in depth. So I think they are. I mean, at least I know they are. In my experience, it was like really impressive in regards to like the steps they're taking to make sure.
Yeah, I also want to add on. There are like adaptive controls that go beyond like the Xbox adaptive controller. I mean, there are some that are mouth controlled through, like the sip and puff action that you would use through a power chair for extremely paralyzed people. And then there's, I've also seen eye controlled interfaces. So you can play the video game using, your eyes. And so the technology is rapidly evolving. And those two systems are well beyond my knowledge of, how they work and how well they work. But, the technology is being, as it's catching up in general, it's being more utilized for leisurely things like video gaming and things like that.
The thing that was most impressive about this game, and it was two disabled individuals that were on the team, like building these, modified components of the gameplay. So it made sense. I mean, they were disabled themselves, so like it was just probably based on their experience, but it was really incredible, like their knowledge. But you were playing the game, and parts of the game where you had to use 4 or 5 fingers on all sides of the controller, and it would overwhelm you. The game, if you had the accessibility settings set, could recognize that intuitively. It would compensate for you. It would allow you to just use the ones that you could, and there would be like no interruption in the gameplay. You wouldn't die 500 times trying to get past one part. Like it would recognize that you have this set up to these accessibility settings, so the game would kind of just like kick in at that part, like help you out a little bit, as much as you set it to, and you could keep flowing. And I thought that was so impressive. because that was always the hardest thing for me. Is like I get to a point in the game where I would really struggle because my fingers wouldn't let me do what I needed to do. And I'd call my brother in and be like, Nick, can you please come and like beat this part of the game for me?
Just
Like, I've
give me
like
passes.
spent 8 hours doing this and I physically can't do it. But like
It's like an ability cheat code.
exactly.
For me, gaming, is my little iPad Pro. I have one game, I play it. It's kind of, and I can see why anybody would want to play games. It really, makes you not think about a stressful day or something like that, and you can get into not thinking about maybe even your disability. But I play a hill climbing, so I got this touchpad. It's kind of reminds me of my A and B button. But is gaming looking like they might have where more of something like you are touching an iPad, touch controllers where you can kind of, instead of tilting up and down, moving it with your hands or a touch screen?
So as we get into VR and as virtual reality becomes more commonplace, there will be fewer controllers. You will be directly interacting with the game. And so, look for that to be the case. Right now, if you look at the difference, so we'll talk about the Oculus headsets, which are now owned by Facebook. When they first started out, you needed a cord, which went to a very high power computer. Then you needed to set up posts all around your room so it could recognize where you were, and it had fairly bulky controllers and all that stuff. In just 3 generations of that system, they now have one that doesn't have a cord at all, so it can be completely wireless. They've removed the need for posts all around because the headset itself directly can interpret where you are in that room. And the controllers are getting more and more minimalistic. And so what you're going to see, it's going to be less of direct interaction with it, and it's going to be more this computer understanding how you're moving and then interpreting that in the game. So, that's what I see going forward.
That sounds pretty cool.
Kind of like, which is one of my favorite books, and I'm reading, it just came out, Ready Player 2, but kind of like, I don't know if you've ever read Ready Player One. It's an amazing book, and they made a movie out of it, but it was all with the goggles and gloves. That's all it was.
It's unique, I think, what VR is going to offer the disabled community in terms of experience and escapism, I like to call it. I was a part of a study over at the college that I went to, and it was a VR exercise study. And what they did is they put on a VR headset while you worked out. And they asked you about like your fatigue and your pain, and like before, during, and after. And part of the study was that you're just working out, and the other part of the study is you're working out with a VR headset in a different environment. Like you could pick, like I was working out in space, I was working out in this prehistoric environment, like on a bike, and like as I was like using the arm bike, like I was traveling like through this prehistoric environment, like dinosaurs next to me and stuff, like tripping out.
That's
But
awesome.
I felt I was able to work out longer. I did not feel as fatigued. I did not feel like any of the pain or any of the, aching stuff that I normally did because I was too distracted by the virtual environment that I was in. It was tripping me out. Even beyond that, I was playing like Resident Evil 7 with my buddies one night on the VR headset, and you put this headset on, and granted, I had a beer or two, like at that point during the night, but like you start out in a sitting position, and then this guy stands up, and I'm in my chair, and like my virtual character stood up, and the ground like moved further away from me, and like it was able to like trick my brain, like capture that depth perception, and give me that like feeling and that impression that I just stood up, which I had not experienced in a long time. And it tripped me out for a second. It was cool. And just unique experiences like that, I think, to offer, individuals and stuff, like it's going to be really amazing, in the future and moving forward, I think.
There is a cool
That is
app
really
I
cool.
use. Not too long ago, I got a wheelchair trainer because next year when we have a 5K, I got to beat Sean Fluke and make sure I get the title for Super Quad. But I found an app called Z-Swift, and when I'm pushing on my trainer, I'm looking at a screen and it shows me as a cyclist.
Oh,
And
that's
that's
cool.
what I did before my accident. I wanted to be a professional, bike rider, and now I am a bike rider. And then I get to choose wherever I want to ride. If I want to ride in France in the countryside, or if I want to ride in one of their virtual worlds of, volcanoes and stuff like that, I can. So I understand that mode, and luckily I don't have to hit A and B at the same time. I just push my chair. But it's kind of cool when you work out that way.
But let's talk about for a second. Like I did Wii Dance when it came out, like with my brother and sister, and like the Wii Sports, and they taped that controller to my hand, and heck yeah, we were dancing and playing tennis and moving around, and it was a freaking workout, and it was awesome, and it was like some of the most fun I've had. But it was getting you moving, getting you active, and that can be part of it for you. Like what you like mentioned a few minutes ago is like touch, mobile gaming, like iPad games and stuff like that. There's different types of gamers. There's different types of games, right? If you're talking to a hard and true PC gamer who's like, lives on their computer and like these next gen games, they're going to be like, yeah, those mobile games are not real gaming. But, it's like not for me. It's not the caliber of gaming that we want. Like, I want a controller in my hand. I want this fully immersive experience. But at the end of the day, I think games are really about like escaping reality and giving yourself a break from, real life and occupying your mind in a fun way and entertaining way and entertaining yourself. And for some people, that is mobile gaming on their phone or their
I was,
iPad. If you
I
can
actually
sit
was
there,
gonna. We had somebody in
but
chat bring up mobile gaming. They're a C6, C7 quad, and they're legendary on Call of Duty, I guess, mobile. So
yeah,
that's
exactly.
what they
Like
do, So that's just
Call of Duty Mobile, they're offering platforms and dude, seriously, like comparable next generation games you can play on your phone in an immersive environment that is like Call of Duty, that is like, PUBG, which is like another cool, fun first person shooter multiplayer game that you couldn't play before, using a controller. Like, I had a really hard time with those games, but now I can play PUBG with my brother on my phone sometimes. And it's like, oh man, like I'm playing it like I feel like one of those like streamers online, like in the game doing my thing and stuff, and it's very cool and very unique. So I never knock mobile gaming. I mean, the only game I don't really like that much is Candy Crush. But hey, if you like Candy Crush and you like get into it, that's your escape, and you enjoy it. There's no one can judge you for that.
There,
And like,
there's someone out there watching this still playing Angry Birds, so we don't want to send them away.
yeah,
exactly.
We
that's true.
appreciate you.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Gaming is what you make it.
Yeah.
It's the experience that you make it. Like I love consoles and I love PC games and like I love PC gaming because that was what I got into and what was my interest, and I'm a nerd. But for my brother, like that's not it. Like he loves Nintendo, he loves his consoles, like he loves his PlayStation. I
Well,
mean,
video gaming in general, to kind of go to a bigger point you're talking about, is all about escapism, right? And, I mean, for me, that was a big part of why I started streaming. So I've been playing a lifelong video game player, but given the COVID and the onset of, needing to quarantine and all that, for one, I'm hyper competitive playing wheelchair rugby,
Yeah.
and other sports. And so I was missing the competition, and also I'm extremely social, and an extrovert, so I really enjoy talking to people. And so, it was only a few months back that I decided that, maybe I'm playing these video games anyways. I might as well just stream these out. And so, I mean, that's what kind of sparked it for me. And so that's part of the escapism. I think it's it's not just the game, it's everything that's in the game, everything that's around the game, your involvement in the game, and your interaction with others who play the game. And so I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. I definitely had a point and I forgot it, but I'm sure it was great.
no, that's okay
No,
because like I was just gonna kind of jump in like on
Yeah,
top.
go for it. You go for it.
Is that I mean that's always what it was for me too. It was, I mean, my brother and sister were like very athletic, like in wrestling and football, and like doing all this like soccer and all this stuff all the time, all year long, every year. And I was not the athlete, but again, like it's still fun to compete. It's still like really fun to be competitive. And for me, and like the way I got competitive with my brother was playing video games. Like Madden, Madden 2000, Madden 2002, like, all throughout, like, I mean, every game you could imagine, I mean, GoldenEye back on the N64, the multiplayer, like, first-person shooters and stuff. But I got good enough just from practice and learning how to do it that I could compete with him and I could play with him. And it was a competition. It was fun. And I'd beat him and he'd get all pissed off that I beat him and stuff. And it was like a way that, we can be competitive together, but on a level playing field. Mm-hmm. And there were times where, he would still like have an advantage and, kick my butt every time and stuff. And I get frustrated and pissed off. But, more often than not, we were on par or I was better. And that was really, I think, like it gave me something. It gave me, I don't know if it was confidence or a boost, but it's like, yeah, I could beat him at something, It was like, I was like, damn, like I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. Or I wish I could compete at that level, And I mean, sure, it was video games. It was kind of silly, but it was something. And it was like something that we really enjoyed doing together and we did a lot of. And, I wanted to talk about the escapism thing too.
Yeah, no, that's really cool for you guys.
A reality of our daily life is pain, discomfort, stuff going on in our body, and sometimes we need a distraction. And I think like video games for some people can be like a really great way to occupy your mind and pull yourself away from that like constant nagging whatever it may be that's bugging you or giving you a hard time that day. And I know it can be for me, like pull my brain away from whatever's like bugging me, for a few hours.
And I think it falls for anybody that has pain. If it's going to be gaming or it's going to be work or exercise, as long as you can have that avenue to pull your brain out and definitely get on track to something else. And I hear it all the time when somebody's on a morphine pump of the max level, and then he tells me about every Tuesday night he goes to play pool, and I'm like, so how's your pain when you play pool? He goes, oh, I don't have pain when I play pool. And it's like, yeah, see, get yourself busy, and then you won't complain about it at every support group. Let me move into something. It seems like on our chat we have a lot of people that are playing games, but for Sean and I, we say now we're hooked. We want to play. What would be the recommendation for us to buy, or where would you tell us to start for those who don't play games and maybe been thinking about it or haven't or never thought they could do it?
I want to shout out for anyone who's looking to start playing games right now. Google, YouTube, shout out YouTube streaming live service. But also, it's shout out Stadia. It's a service released by Google. It's called Google Stadia. And what it is it allows you to play pretty much like the new modern games. Almost, I mean, it's limited in a certain sense, but they're coming out more and more all the time. Right through your browser, right through your regular computer. You don't need a fancy console. You don't need anything. You can play it through your Google Chrome. Even if you don't have a computer, you can get a Google Chromecast and play through your Google Chrome. And it's all through your internet. It's the processing for the video game isn't done on your computer. It's not done on a console. It's done on a Google server. They feed back your controls from your keyboard or from your controller, and you can use any PlayStation controller, Xbox controller, or the Google Stadia controller, which is very similar, or your keyboard. I've been using my keyboard, and you just buy the game and you play through your browser. You just need an internet connection and Google Chrome.
I'm going to go even lower budget than that. There are a ton of games out now that are free to play. And as long as you don't fall victim to the microtransactions, they will stay free to play. So, I mean, someone mentioned PUBG Mobile. So you can play that on your phone for free, and it is a fairly high-quality game. The two of the big games I stream, Astro Flea Gaming on Facebook Gaming. Just check that out.
The link is in the description.
Yeah, shout out. Awesome, thank you. So the two big games I stream mostly are Call of Duty Warzone and Rocket League. Both are free games. that you can download and play on your computer. I mean, both are computer games. So, you need a computer that can at least handle them. Rocket League is fairly non-computationally intensive. Warzone is quite intensive. But there's tons of free options. And, right now, everybody on Facebook Marketplace is selling their PS4s and Xbox Ones. So you can get them for real cheap right now. And if you don't want those, you can at least get the controllers. And you can use Xbox controllers on a PC. And then, start that way. Lowest bar of entry, go cheapest option, and then figure out what you need from there on. I would not go and buy a $2,000 gaming computer tomorrow or go wait in line for an Xbox Series X. Find out what you like, try a bunch of free games, delete the ones you don't, and then if there's ones you want to try that cost money, then buy those. But I'd say right now it is the easiest time it has ever been to get into gaming because the bar of entry is so low. I mean, literally, if you have a cell phone, you can play some of the top games in the world right now.
And if you want to start getting into more of the console style games, really it only costs $40 or $50 for a gamepad, which is just like a controller, like an Xbox style controller that will just connect to your computer, and you can purchase the games on Stadia and play through online through your browser if you have high-speed internet connection, or download the free games like Eric said, and you can still play with the controller and get a feel for it. And splurge a little bit with your Christmas money, $40 or $50 on Amazon, and you can really get a feel for if you can even do it. If it doesn't work out, you have the controller for a week and it's not working for you, return that sucker and try something else. And give yourself a chance. I had a buddy who's a quadriplegic come over and hang out this pre-COVID stuff, and he hadn't played video games since before his injury. And I was like, we were just kicking it for a little while, and I'm like, hey man, you want to play some Super Smash Bros? It's one of my favorite games to play all time. And it was his before his injury. And he was like, I don't know, man. I don't think I can do it. And it was on a Wii U. And if anybody's familiar, a Wii U has a big gaming controller. It looks like a tablet. It's the Wii U tablet. And it's this huge thing. But it was this massive controller that he could set on his lap and put his hands on and work, without major dexterity. And it took him, probably a good 30 minutes, an hour to, losing a bunch of rounds to Ruthless Tom that didn't give him no quarter while he was getting, his bearings. But then he did and was super into it and got really excited. It was he just didn't realize he could do it until he tried to do it. And, it just happened that I had the tablet controller that worked, and, we're able to just play around and figure it out until he could get it. And there's tons of different systems. There's tons of different controllers. And everything we've been talking about, there's so many customizable controllers now. If you have any interest and you're curious about it, it's really, I think, worth it. Give yourself, the Christmas love and give something to try. Because sometimes all it does is all it takes is trying it out to realize oh man, I can do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great advice, man. Because I think you can get into it for, like you guys were saying, pretty cheap now. And I would say, I feel if I were to try something, because I wouldn't mind trying to play games, it's just been, I don't know. I just never really got fully into it. And then I never wanted to sink the money into it and stuff. But buying a controller for my computer might be a good idea to get used to the controller feel and stuff. That feels like a good entry point for me. So maybe that's where I'll start too.
For sure. And I mean, honestly, I just got the new Cyberpunk 2077 game on Stadia. I've been playing the last couple days on my laptop, and the functions are fully mappable within the software, so I could fully remap my keyboard and my trackpad and stuff to make it usable and functional and playable for me and stuff. And it was a really fun, unique, cool experience. Jump back into it without having to go buy the whole Xbox, situation or whatever. So Sean, do yourself a favor, spend the $50 and give it a go, bro.
I will, man. Honestly, it sounds I like games. I guess I just never really especially after my injury, it was it felt hard to do initially, and I just wasn't sure, and I just never really got all into. I actually did get a Wii originally. Like I had the Wii, like you were saying. I made a strap for my hand for tennis, and actually, so I will say one game that I really enjoyed playing with the Wii was House of Thousand Corpses or House of the Dead. Like it's a zombie killing game, and they with the Wii controller they had like a gun that you could buy. Like the Wii controller sat in, and I added some little foam mounts. I had a little controller with like control a joystick on the back of it with my chin, so I could like run around with my chin and shoot people, like shoot zombies, and that was actually awesome. Like I did play hours of that when I was first couple of years out of the hospital and stuff, and like that was my gaming experience.
I'm right with you. I'm right with you. I had a Wii, and I figured out Mario Kart. We'd have a piece of tape, and as soon as it said go, I'd hit the throttle, the takedown, so the throttle would stay down. And then I just had to hit one button to fire out. So I'm like, okay, I can do this one. But my problem with gaming, which I found out in Mario Kart, is next thing I know, I'm like, oh my God, it's 2 a.m, and I'm like, this is not good. I can't, So that's the reason why I never got into it. I'm always afraid I'm just going to immerse myself too much.
Here's the secret. Set an alarm on your phone when you want to stop playing. So what I do is, because I'm the same, so especially since I've started the streaming thing, like I can keep playing straight through and suddenly it's 2 a.m, and that's not good because I have like a real person job. No, I'll set an alarm on my phone that, it's on silent. So, it doesn't make noise while I'm online, but, it'll just start flashing in front of me. And I'm like, oh, it's like 11 p.m. I should probably wrap up soon. So if you know yourself, you can anticipate and prepare. So that's my tidbit of advice.
And my favorite mantra on here, like all the regular listeners will probably know, like moderation is key for everything. Like you can become addicted to video games just like anything else. So it's important to, like Eric said, know yourself. But let's nerd out for a second, Eric. I want to pick your brain. So you are like a first-person shooter, like gamer, like mainly?
For the most part. What am I playing? So one game I really like to play. So if we're talking about like chill, non-competitive games that are just really fun and relaxing to play, No Man's Sky is my game. So in that game, there's no real plot. There's no goal. You're purely just exploring a literal infinite universe. It's, I think it's 256 galaxies with like 15 quintillion planets in this game.
Wow.
And it's, there's other real people. So theoretically you can go hang out with other people in this, or you can be completely by yourself. And so that's a game I like to play where, I can, if I just want to chill and relax and like have no stress, that's the game I go to. I'm very much considering Cyberpunk. It looks good, but I just haven't pulled the trigger on that one yet.
Oh, I know it's getting a lot of bad reviews.
I know I might just wait till they work out some of the bugs and or the issues. I don't know. It's so tough because when you stream, I'm gonna get in on the secrets of streaming here. You don't always get to stream the games you want to play due to algorithms and audiences and things like that. So the games I've been playing the most are Warzone and Rocket League. I'm a big fan of Rocket League. I enjoy Warzone, but so my time is very much split between those two games.
There.
Is that where you're playing with a team? Is that when you guys say live stream? Is you have another team?
So
an audience. It's you play.
So with the advent of the modern age of video gaming, another thing that is becoming increasingly popular is watching other people play video games. And
it's so curious to me, but
it's weird. So a year ago, I thought it was weird, right? I was one of those people like, why would I want to watch someone else play video games? Like that's dumb. I can just do that myself. But it is incredibly entertaining to watch other people, especially if they themselves are entertaining, because you can't just be playing the video game. You also have to be like a game show host at the same time. And it can be a very enjoyable experience. I mean, there's a huge market for it. And, a year later, after I probably would have, talked crap about, watching people play video games, I am now a streamer with other people watching me play video games. So like it has really come full circle there. And I have a close network with other streamers that I'm friends with, and I'll watch their streams, and they're really good at it, and so that's kind of what it is. So I play video games. I play them with other people, but like I also have people watching me play, and it's fun. It's interactive. We have a chat. We talk about the issues of the day, or why I just got killed for doing something dumb in the game, or whatever. And another thing I do is, so I'm a big space nerd. So I will also do live streams covering rocket launches and talking about the rocket launches as they're happening, because I have a bit of knowledge in that area.
That's
And
pretty
so,
cool.
and then I'll just dive right into playing video games right after that. So like it's a whole thing. Stop on by. You
What's
might
your
enjoy it.
aerospace background, Eric?
Uh, I've worked in the space industry for a while now. Educationally, I have a background in physics and electrical engineering.
Awesome.
I used to work at a space startup that was doing asteroid mining, which was a bit ahead of its time. And then I worked for the federal government doing some aerospace engineering stuff. And now,
Man, we got to nerd out about SpaceX together one of these
yeah,
times.
and now I have a little space company doing stuff. So when I'm not playing video games, I'm trying to get stuff into space. So
That's
clearly
awesome,
I have
man.
like a nerd problem in my life.
Oh, that's really cool, man. I think
No,
it's
that
cool.
is
I don't think it's
awesome.
very.
The only
Uh,
streaming that I do is this quadcast with you guys. I'm not a big video game streamer, but my buddy, one of my best friends, Danny, he started streaming like 3 months ago, and he's got like a little audience and everything, and it's awesome. Like it's one of the coolest things. And we started off streaming together. Like I'd go over to his apartment pre-COVID, and we'd like both set up and play and stream
Mhm.
online with one person watching us for hours. But it was always like good fun, and it is like cool to like chat and talk to other people while you're playing and while they're watching you play and kind of have a little conversation and stuff. But streaming was never my thing, and I just love video games just because I'm a huge nerd. I'm just a giant computer nerd, and I've always been really into programming, and like that naturally kind of like lent itself to these virtually rendered universes that we get to explore and live our lives in. um but yeah, video games are just awesome. Like I love Super Smash Bros. I like oh,
I'm so bad. My wife plays Super Smash Brothers, and like she destroys me. I am not good at it.
yeah,
Um,
it was just like the N64. Like I've always been a Nintendo fan. Like
yeah.
Legend of Zelda is probably like my favorite game series, and Breath of the Wild and all that stuff coming out. Like, and then Smash Bros. Ultimate. Like I got a chance to get back into it, and all my best buddies like were like super competitive with Smash Bros. So we got really into it. But outside of that, my other favorite style of game is open world RPGs like Skyrim, Fallout, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Uh, I could play that stuff
So
forever.
you should talk to my wife about that. She put hundreds of hours into Skyrim, and so we got a Nintendo Switch like a year ago, and I've only gotten to play it like once or twice because she has taken that as her system. So
Skyrim, Breath of the Wild all
Oh,
day.
she
every
she
day.
played Breath of the Wild. She's Mario Kart, the Paper Mario game. I think she just bought like the entire BioShock collection, so she's playing through those. So I'll see her again in a couple months.
Have you guys ever thought about programming your own games? Have you ever
I
tried?
I am terrible at programming. So I
I
think it's interesting, but no.
It's not what I studied when I studied software engineering. Graphics, programming, like game development, is very different than like computer programming. It's a whole different beast. Generating graphics, it's super math intensive. I mean, it's using mathematics to simulate, our physical world around us generally, as best as possible, given, certain fantasy or fictitious elements, right? But still, like, that's a seemingly crazy task. And I love math and I love programming, but it's for people beyond me.
They're they're working on getting it so it's less computationally intensive and more on like the artistic side of it as far as developing the video games. I just don't think I'm not like creative enough to invent a world. I think that's my limitation. I will gladly exist in your created world, but I don't know if I have it in me to be the one to create it.
I like worked on a project with a friend in school. It was like a very simple like mobile game, and it put me off the experience because it was rather frustrating trying to get it to be functional and be playable and fun.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't really my thing. But there is a really cool game that I do want to shout out. It's called Dreams. It's a PlayStation game, exclusive on Sony, so you need a PlayStation to do it. But it's a game development game. So within that game, you can build your own games and play with other people in the community, and they play your games and stuff. And my buddy Danny, he streams that game, and he streams with other people. They build games together and stuff, and it's very creative, cool, unique environment. I thought
It's very meta.
Yeah. Well, he's a game developer too, but doesn't really have the time to sit and program. So he's been doing these cool games and Dreams, and hundreds of people play his games and stuff.
It's like PC Builder Simulator. So there's a virtual reality game where you can build a computer in the video game. So, anyways, that's an aside to say that.
Yeah.
It's like Inception.
Here, real quick before
my grandson, he's a big Minecraft. He loves Minecraft.
Oh yeah.
So I'm finally starting to understand how to do something on it. Which it's actually pretty interesting building stuff or mining or whatever he tells me to do. That's all he does. Do this. Now chop down wood.
So if you want to look up something, really cool for Minecraft, someone built a functioning calculator in Minecraft using only manual switches in the game. So if you want to have your mind blown about some people have way too much time but also are incredibly smart, give that a Google search because that was spectacular.
That sounds cool.
Shout out Minecraft. That's a fun one if you it's cheap and it's on your computer if you want to get into something.
Well, yeah. I mean, luckily for me, it was on my iPad, so I was like, okay, I'll try this.
Exactly. Do we have any questions, Sean?
Well, I just wanted to also shout out real quick. Sean Adams from the chat mentioned a quad stick, which I guess he plays full video games with it's a quad only using chin control. He has no hand function, and I guess he says he's pretty good and dominates with just that controller. So just if any high level quads want to check that out, I just want to shout that out before.
There's a quad gamer that plays like that with his chin in his mouth, with the quad stick, on a whole custom setup, and he's world record holder in some Call of Duty game or something.
Yeah, there was some guy who just got signed a professional gaming contract, didn't he? Is that the same guy? Okay. Yeah, that was pretty. You guys need to get him on the show, not me. But
I was reading articles about him, but yeah, I mean, he's being paid to play video games professionally, and he's so good. He can compete with the world's best players in certain games using these assistive and adaptive devices. So it goes to show you, if you want to get into it, there's definitely ways to do it.
Yeah,
so shout out
if we do this again, Tom, the request out there from Spencer, he'd rather see us battle each other, and we all play something like Halo or something and battle one or another. So
set up a little stream gaming setup. Maybe have a gaming portion of the channel.
We can do that.
Yeah, that would be cool. And anybody that wants to watch some gaming in a half hour, Eric is actually be starting his stream. The link is in the thing in the description. Flea, and he starts his gaming stream in a half hour after we're done with this. So shout that out. Anybody wants to check it out. What is it?
Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, Friday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, and then Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern is when I stream. So if you're free, then come stop by. It'll be a great time.
Absolutely, definitely check it out. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you guys wanted to cover? Any more topics that we wanted to touch on?
I think we got most of it.
I
do just want to shout out before we. Go ahead, Tom.
Go ahead, Sean.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just wanted to shout out real quick. This is the week we got 2 live shows this week. On Thursday is my monthly women's show that's hosted by Brianna Wheeler. So in a couple of days, if anybody at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we'll have a women's show, and they're going to be covering some interesting topics. And then like usual, every Tuesday at 3:30 we are live with different topics and different stuff. Next week is actually we'll be talking to disabled actors, and I have two of my friends, Toby and Danny, that will be coming on. They both work in Hollywood and act and direct, do all kinds of stuff. So just shout out upcoming shows, and then one more time, let's shout out Astro Flea. Make sure you check that out. He's got a stream coming up in a half hour. You can check it out live, and he does three nights a week, right? You said Tuesday, Friday.
Tuesday and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, then Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern.
And
For
Sunday.
more
All right.
information, you guys, like, Google is an amazing resource. I did want to mention this website that I found really cool and comprehensive. It's called caniplaythat.com, and basically it's like live, like, reviews of the new consoles and new games, and it's all centered around accessibility and adaptive gaming. Reviews on like how playable and how like accessible the new games are, like days after they come out. All the commentary on the accessibility features on the new consoles, PC gaming, and then depending on your type of disability, information on the accessibility devices and tools that you might be able to use and take advantage of, depending all the ways from visual impairment, hearing impairment to mobility impairment. They got you covered. It was a really cool website, so I wanted to mention that. And thank our host Sean for putting all this together. Shout out Sean Fluke, Live to Roll. If you haven't,
Thanks, guys.
like,
Like,
comment.
subscribe. Oh, go ahead, Bobby.
I do have one more quick question for Eric. For your live streaming, is it you make money? Can you make money? I'm sure some of the big guys are making some dough. According to what my grandson, when he's watching something like that, I'm like, what are you doing? Watching a video game? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, okay. So I imagine there's potential to make money.
Yeah, so the people that are good at it can make a considerable amount of money, can make a livable wage off of it, if not more. I am not yet to that point. I'm currently just doing it for fun and just trying to build up a community. If it gets to the point where I'm able to make some money off of it, I will appreciate that.
Take it.
But for now, at least in the near future, I'm just doing it for the community building and for the interaction and to see what's out there.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, and thanks, guys. Tom,
thanks for joining.
Glad having you as a guest, one of our guests this time.
It's fun being on the other side of the table.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. And if you ever want me back for anything, let me know.
Oh yeah, we will definitely, guys. So everybody, thanks for watching. We appreciate you guys checking out the stream. Live to roll.